Welcome to the current. Energy is one of those areas every business depends on, but very few actually understand it. For most companies, it's just another cost on the balance sheet, something to manage, to reduce, or try not to think about. But what if that thinking is wrong? What if energy isn't just a cost, but something that can be optimized, controlled, and in some cases, even turned into a revenue stream? Today's guest works right at the center of that shift. As managing director of Cub, he leads a specialist consultancy helping businesses navigate one of the most complex and misunderstood parts of running a company, the energy. Working with a lean, high-performance team, delivering for large clients and operating in a market that's constantly evolving, this is a conversation about leadership, trust, and what's really happening behind the scenes in the energy world. Louis, welcome to The Current. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
We're really looking forward to unpack your journey and the conversation, a little bit more about the work you guys do at Cub. But let's just start with you. So for someone who's never heard of Cub before, what do you guys do and what's your role within the business?
Sure. Yeah. So Cub are an energy consultancy firm. We help our clients to manage and navigate their way through an increasingly complex element of cost for businesses. And as you very eloquently alluded to, we also now look at energy as a potential revenue stream. So we deliver some advantage to our clients in that we can look at energy differently and dig out and assess and realize opportunities for customers where they can simply use the way they use energy as a form of income.
Yeah, we're looking forward to unpack that a bit more and the value we can extract. So what would you say makes your approach different from maybe a typical energy broker or different consultancy? Is there anything that distinguishes yourself?
Yeah, so I think it's the flexibility or demand side response as a couple of terms that are used around how customers can benefit from their energy use and generate some revenue from it. That side of the business is one that we've grown over the last few years and one that we expect to grow into the future as we can help more and more customers with that particular point. So instead of just negotiating and managing energy contracts, which we do, we can ask for an energy supplier to provide us with a quote for a customer for 12 months, for example, and they give us a fixed price. We'll then also look at how that customer uses energy and if there are any opportunities in this new flexibility space or demand side response space.
Interesting. Yeah, so it's both ends of the spectrum, the cost and the savings as well, going hand in hand. I like that. Now, I alluded to it in the beginning. I know from our previous conversations, we know you're operating with a relatively lean team, but obviously you still deliver for large, high-value clients. So how do you manage to structure the business to make that work?
So our minimum length of service, it's worth pointing out, is 10 years now. So we have a very small, relatively speaking, dedicated team of people, a dedicated team of experts. We've established, I'll just step back for a moment, actually. It's a family-owned business, Cub. My grandfather actually started the company. My mother and my uncle are still directors and I still meet with them on a monthly basis. And that kind of structure and that ethos, as corny as it sounds, but that's how we've kind of ran the business, has filtered down to the team as such that, we've ended up with people that see where the business has come from, where it's going, and they're as passionate about helping our clients as I was for the clients that I manage, and I was when I was a relationship manager, as my grandfather was when he started the company. And that's lovely to see. In a roundabout way, Blaze, it's taken care of itself, if that makes sense. But there's not been a clear strategy around how we have to deliver that and where we balance things. The team treat their customer base as if it's their own business almost. And they look at their portfolio of customers and they want to do as good a job as if it was their own organization. And that's a lovely thing. I've not had to teach that to them. They've kind of adopted that on their own.
That really is a wonderful thing to have. And I think that's the dream for every business, is to have the operators and the people working within the business to view almost like a culture, a family environment, which I guess you guys was. Quick question on the side though. Obviously, we know sometimes people do have to hire. Now, a lot of the questions I have on the show or people want to wonder is, how do you manage to attract talent like that? How do you keep them retaining? You said 10 years is the minimum. I think you said that's really impressive, especially in the industry we're in today. What's the
That's
key to
right.
retaining?
Yeah. So in terms of recruitment, as you can tell, we've not had to recruit for some time. The team that I have the pleasure of working with, we brought them on when they were all relatively young. So some of the team went through apprenticeship programs with us back in sort of 2010 to sort of 15 or so. We did quite a bit on that kind of training and development from the start, and therefore we've not had to recruit. So it's a difficult one to answer. But I think at the time, the people that we were looking for and the individuals that we were trying to recruit weren't at the level that we weren't looking for graduates. We were looking for that kind of raw talent, and the ethics and the values that individual held were far more important than anything it said on a piece of paper in terms of a CV. And that's borne out in the way we operate now, the team we've got, and every year that goes by, it astonishes me that got that level of dedication from them, and hopefully that'll continue into the future.
It's amazing. It sounds like you found some diamonds in the rough, and you allowed them to
Absolutely.
grow and give them a position. That's really interesting. And obviously, I did mention it earlier, but you're still a relatively lean team. What would you say are the advantages of staying lean instead of hiring? And what would you say the advantage?
Sure. Yeah. So I didn't put a number on the head count. There's 9 of us that are full-time employed and operational. There's actually 12 across the business, including a cleaner part-time and my mother and my uncle. But the the guys that are doing the work day to day, there's 9. So it is a lean team. Benefits for me are being able to think and act quickly and efficiently. Whereas when we're dealing with, our suppliers, some of those employ tens of thousands of people, the Eons and the Empowers of this world. And you can see that when you have a challenge from a customer that you have to kind of push back on that's outside of the norm, the governance that sits behind every decision that has to be made just means it takes so long for them to make a decision on something that's outside the norm. Whereas for us, it's probably a conversation between the account manager and myself, and we make a rational call on whether that's something that's worth doing or not worth doing. And just one other point I think is worth mentioning, I always make the team realize how valuable it is in how quickly our sort of how we get back to our clients. So response time on queries is usually minutes or hours.
Wow.
We don't sit on an email from a customer for any length of time. And again, that's kind of happened on its own. The team look at it as if, okay, I've had a query from a customer. I want to deal with that as quickly as I possibly can and get back to them as quickly as I possibly can. And when you deal with other organizations, which we have to, you see that doesn't get reflected back. So it's kudos to them and their work in doing an excellent job for our clients.
Yeah, you're right. I think the agility that comes with leanness and being able to be adaptive and move quickly, and especially in today's economy, everyone values quick response times, and
Yeah.
it's evident why. I'd like to just talk a bit about your role. You mentioned obviously it being a family business, and of course that in itself has a lot of pressure, being one of the family members. But now you're a managing director and part owner, so ultimately all the responsibility does sit with you. So
Yes.
what maybe has changed when you mentioned stepping in from the accounts manager all the way up to relationships now to the new position? What's changed for you?
So I've been managing director now since I was 27, turning 40 this year. So yeah, just around 13 years. Before that, so I've been with Cub for 20 years, I should say, from the start. And when I started, we were myself, my mother and my uncle, and one part-time employee. And the business was substantially smaller in terms of customer size, but also the kind of portfolio and the services that we deliver. So a lot of the changes that happen in terms of what my role looked like and what was going to look like, I almost drove myself, and it kind of panned out over a period of time, and always with the same set of ideas in the back of my head, in that I want this business to be here in another 30 years. I want this to be a family-owned business and have that longevity into the future. and probably have my kids want to kick me out the door when I'm hanging on 80 years old. Huge amounts have changed in answer to your question. I couldn't even begin to list how many things have changed. And at the same time, the energy market and the energy industry has changed substantially, which I'm happy to, go into a bit more detail about. Yeah. Is that a bit of a cop out? I don't know,
No,
but
no,
hopefully I
no,
answered the question there.
that's understandable, and I completely understand this big amount of time to compress into a short answer.
Yeah.
But maybe if you could just think about to those 13 plus years of experience, what would you say are some of the biggest lessons you've learned from leading the business so far? Obviously, we know going to be so many more in the future.
Of course. Yeah. I think that one of the major lessons that I learned quite early on was to play to your strengths. So we rebranded, restructured, looked at how we communicate our products to our clients, and it was in quite a corporate way. So we didn't have kind of product names or anything like that at one point, and then we moved into these sort of packages for customers. It was platinum and all those kind of things, different service levels, and it alienated some customers. It confused some of our staff, and I think it was probably a move too soon to try and get and view ourselves as a bit too corporate. Whereas when we reversed that, our clients sort of, I think generally, and our staff breathed a bit of a sigh of relief. The most important thing from my perspective and the biggest lesson has been to keep things as simple as you possibly can. The energy market's complicated enough. Let's not add to that complexity.
I like it. And is it Da Vinci who said simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication? And that still rings true to us, 500 plus years later?
Indeed.
I like it. Now, we will dive into the energy market because obviously it's something every business deals with, but few people actually understand, apart from yourself, what's actually going on behind the scenes. Would you be able to just briefly give us a little bit overview of what's actually happening in the market right now? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah. It's very topical at the moment, as I'm sure you're well aware, with the issues in the Middle East and the ongoing conflict there. The markets are beholden to world affairs these days.
Yeah.
So the impact of that and what that means for customers is that they could have their energy costs increase 10, 20% within a week as regards to what their renewal price is expected to be based on a tweet that Donald Trump sends out, quite simply, or as we've seen now, actual military action and an awful ongoing conflict in that area. So that's kind of sitting in the background. We've also got the longer aim of net zero that the government has still got in the back of their mind that we want to try and achieve, which is largely going well if you look at it on the face of how we generate power. And also we've got growing electrification of heat and of transport, so more and more EVs and different types of electric transportation coming forward. Those two things then create a kind of problem, which is that the grid often either has too much power or not enough power to meet those differing drivers. And this is where we've seen an opportunity for our customers to be able to sit between those two conflicting issues and effectively offer their reduction in power, potentially, if the grid is in need of more power, or to be able to, in some cases, increase the amount of electricity they use and actually get paid for doing that. So energy cost is increasing. That's not going away anytime soon, and it's become quite drastic recently, as you need to read in the headlines across the piece. The energy infrastructure is changing, and the drivers around the makeup of the energy bill are changing, and the cost of getting electricity, particularly around the country, has gone up substantially. And then, as I said, with the net zero piece in the background, is this kind of trifecta of the situation that's brought about the need for customers to be able to get involved in how the grid balances itself.
Yeah, that's very insightful. Thank you very much. It's clear to see that education for you is just as important as selling or, working with your customer. And I know from our previous conversations. And this is something that's quite different in the industry because trust can be low. It's not always the norm. So why would you say you chose to take the approach of educating your clients before just go to hard sell them?
Of course. Yeah. I think there's value that's built and trust that's built by telling customers that that's the wrong deal for them in some
Mhm.
cases. I like to think that we're pretty good at that. So whenever we are presented with an opportunity to present something to our clients, it's of utmost importance to us that we don't put them into a bad deal, and that we, whatever that deal is, whether that's an energy contract, whether that's a, power purchase agreement for them, say, putting solar panels on their roof, or to buy some EV chargers, or all this kind of flexible purchasing stuff that I talked about. If we don't do the right job for the customer and almost step into their shoes and think, what would we want to receive in terms of advice at that point, you throw trust out the window completely from the start. So I'd sooner have my team point out that it's not worth working with us on this particular project because of X, Y, and Z, and build trust for the future then, Blaze. So, if we can pick back up with that client, if there's another opportunity that fits into the future, and we've seen that time and time again.
Honesty is one of the most important virtues I think any business can adopt. And it's clear to see you guys have that as forefront as your practice. Now, you did mention earlier, and I was going to pick up on it because it intrigued me, and I'm sure other business owners will be thinking, the part about generating revenue from this energy, being paid to use more energy. Now, that seems almost, how can I think kind of the word, but a bit of a different, interesting prospect. So the idea, of course, would you be able to just explain a little bit more how that works, how people can start getting paid for using more electricity?
Of course. Yeah. So predominantly, if you look at the market, there's been a reasonable amount of activity on this in the domestic market, so aimed at householders. British Gas, for example, have adverts that they have lower cost electricity on Sundays. Octopus have a number of products that allow customers to use energy at different times and get money off their bill. So the concept is the same effectively. With regards to customers getting paid to use more power, predominantly that's aimed at clients that might be able to install storage like a battery or something along those lines, or they've got an actual need to off-take additional power at certain times. The other aspect of this is customers and our clients are getting paid for this very service, can get paid just simply by being available at any given point in time at 4 hours notice to reduce the amount of power that they consume on site. And I'll give you an example. We've got a customer that grows herbs, and they've got quite a lot of lights, as you can imagine, in a big greenhouse, and 2 quite large heat pumps. So the lights and the heat pump are by far and away the biggest consumers of electricity on their site. The herbs don't jump up and down and complain that they've not had enough light or heat that day, as long as over their life cycle of the product they get enough. So that customer can reduce that power consumption at reasonably short notice and get paid tens of thousands of pounds for doing so. With that particular product, that's the capacity market that we put them in. There's never actually been an event where the system has needed to call on the clients at 4 hours notice. So they get paid for being available. We have to make sure they're aware that they could get called, but chances are year to year, they probably won't be. So we have to go through a set of sort of compliance to get them on board and to realise that. But that's working really well for us and for our customers.
Wow. I mean, I never knew that even existed. Getting paid to be on standby, I guess. That's very interesting.
Indeed.
I mean, if people are interested, where can they go to find and get in touch if maybe they're thinking, oh, I'd like to have been paid for not using my electricity?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, reach out to us on our website, just type Cub UK on Google, but also as an impartial information, if you look on the Power Responsive page, NESO have got a team of people that are dedicated to helping organisations navigate any opportunity. So yeah, Power Responsive. If you Google that, there's details on there. But if you get stuck, let me know. And I love talking about this stuff. I'm really passionate about it. So I'll extend the offer to say, yeah, happily sort of share my details, and you can get in touch with me and have an impartial chat about what it is, how it works, what it could do or couldn't do. We don't sell to people. That's not how we do things. We educate, as you said. Yeah, that's the sort of course of action in terms of finding out a bit more.
Amazing. I'll be sure to leave those in the description so people, if they're
Thanks.
interested, can get
Yeah.
in touch. Amazing. Now we can see that you're very passionate, and I know it's amazing to speak to people. Let's think about the future. Looking ahead, where do you perhaps see the biggest opportunities or maybe hurdles coming up in the energy space? I'm just curious your perspective.
Sure. I think it's going to be the bits I mentioned around this dilemma that we have and where all the pieces fit together. But also that if we continue on the trajectory that we are, we're going to find industry as a whole is just going to be diminished. I think that our customers, in terms of their energy costs now, they're just astronomical, quite simply. And we do absolutely everything we can to help our clients, but we're very real around what the future looks like and helping them in terms of budgets and making sure that they can, sort of stack the numbers up. So I think it's bigger than just an energy challenge. I think it's a UK industry and business challenge that we're going to face, in that people need help. People need help on energy costs, and they're not getting enough, in my opinion, quite simply. There are schemes out there that, again, are worth a mention. There's the energy intensive industry scheme. So large users of electricity and gas can see quite considerable cost taken off their bill. There's a new bit of legislation coming in that's going to help some more businesses, industrial supercharger, I think it's called. Again, happy to share the links with you on that. But yeah, sorry if that, again, is a bit of a cop-out because it's not specific to energy. I think the bits I've mentioned already on the challenges as a whole are energy-based, but for me, it's more about energy cost just becoming unrealistic and uncompetitive compared to Europe and further afield.
Yeah, but they're all part of the wider ecosphere of the energy market and the society we live in, which is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I'm just curious personally, what are you guys focused on building next? How do you want to take the business? You mentioned it being a family business, hanging on to your 80. Just curious your goals for the next few years, where you're trying to go next.
Of course. Yeah. So we are now at the point where, for almost all of our services, we've approached and helped our clients where we can. We're not looking to kind of add on any additional services because I think you can get too lost in that. I think, kind of going back to my earlier point, keeping it simple. We specialize in energy. There are organizations that you find that end up doing things like selling tax schemes and printers and all sorts of stuff. I could add a whole host of things on. We do energy really well, so let's continue to do that. And where I think we'll see growth is actually partnering with some of our competitors and other brokers and consultants out there that don't deliver particularly the capacity market scheme. So we've been talking to, just established partnerships with a few other brokers and consultants that aren't able to have their clients get paid just for being available. And when I present the numbers that they could get paid, they start to wake up and say, do you know what? It would make sense for us to partner with you to deliver this, because we don't deliver it. And likewise, we've then established partnership the other way with one of the TPIs, who they validate the bills for one of our biggest customers, because we haven't got a team of people. If they validate 150 bills a month, and I say to my one account manager who looks after that client, okay, go and resolve all those queries, we're going to have a problem. So they provide the sort of back office support. So collaboration's going to generate some partnerships, and on the back of that, allow us to effectively have more access to customers and be able to help more people, quite simply.
I love it. Be able to help more people. It's common, I noticed you say it, you're all about helping people. You're not talking about monetary or gaining. I really can see that you generally want to help people, and that comes through. And it's clear to see why your success is here. Now, Louis, I'd like for you to come in the back of my DeLorean. I want to take you all the way to March 2027. Now, we're looking back at 2026. Now, you've accomplished what you've just said. You managed to have amazing collaboration. You've been able to deliver more projects, help other companies, and ultimately help the businesses you guys work with. Now, what would need to happen for you to feel genuinely proud of 2026?
Yeah, it's good timing, actually, because we run our sales year from April to March. So I've just set our sales targets, which I won't share with you in detail, but we've got a clear set of objectives commercially around what we want to do. And I think that we can meet them. There was some raised eyebrows, I think, across the team in some respect when we sort of presented the numbers, but I'm confident and ambitious, and I want to make sure that we set a sort of high bar for what we can achieve. So A, we'll have met them. B, we will have integrated a new CRM, which is, a bit of a dull point, but a very important one nevertheless. Just this afternoon, actually, we've got the kickoff call with the consultant that we've appointed. And that's just to make sure that we're A, on point with where the kind of data protection and data access and all that sort of stuff's going. Primers for what AI can do for the business going forward, and make sure that we've got our data in order to do that, and also streamline and make sure that the additional growth that I'm asking the team to achieve is achievable, because without creating additional resource, we can't do that.
Yeah, that's some really good goals. And don't worry, they do say if a goal doesn't scare you or raise any eyebrows, it's not big enough. So I think you did the
Indeed.
right thing. We're looking forward to hearing all about it and how you complete it. Now, one rather philosophical question, which I know is a bit of a random, but I'd like to take the moment now, because for all of us, we start businesses for different reasons. I know you mentioned off camera, obviously, you're a family man and you have different hobbies and things like that, and so do myself. I have a question. What does freedom mean to you?
Yeah, it's a big question, that. For me, personally, I could probably talk all day, but I think I'll relate it to Cub and what I do there and what we do, and it's very much about autonomy and being lean and being able to make decisions before you maybe have every single piece of information that you need to have, making the best decision at that point in time with the information that you have, and more importantly, being a kind of master of your own destiny. I feel really lucky that my grandfather started this company, and that I've managed to, with the help of my mother and my uncle, continue to get it to the point that it is now. And the trajectory that we're on is directly influenced by those decisions that I make. So it's about having that level of control over what the future looks like for me personally and for the business, and therefore for my kids and stepkids that may walk into the business one day.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think a lot of people are going to resonate with that. Just thinking about the future. Now, Leary, we just want to thank you. Thank you for coming on and sharing the practical information. It's clear to see that you genuinely care. And in a market where people are over cheap, quick deals, just trying to sell as many tickets and as conversions as they can, you guys in that Cub, you generally want to help people. You're helping businesses. And whatever that means, running a leaner, more efficient operations, you can provide better services. Also thinking ahead to the future, thinking about your goals, trying to go to the next thing. But then ultimately thinking about why we do it. Thinking about keeping that family ethos, thinking about the company culture that you've created. It really is inspiring as well. So we just want to thank you so much for all your insights, and we'll be sure to leave all the descriptions, all the links below. But thank you so much for coming on to The Current.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.